This Dharma, incomparably profound and minutely subtle, is rarely encountered, even in hundreds of thousands of millions of ages. Now see it, hear it, hold and maintain it. May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning. Okay, good evening, everyone. You guys like the light off in the center? It's a different kind of ambiance. You'd have to pull. Welcome. Thank you for joining me on this steamy July Sunday. Tonight's talk is going to be called, this is a bad pun, but I'll do it anyway. In Thus We Trust. Andrew, if you didn't see it, shrugged. He's like, it's not that bad, you've done worse.
You've done worse.
I have. Ostentatious.
Yes,
Trust is not a word that we usually identify very much with Buddhism or Zen. And the trust that we're talking about here requires that we look deeply into our practice and understand that not only are we intimately connected with all of the beings, but that at some point we need to open ourselves up to that great reality, which is life with a capital L. And stop insisting that life goes a certain way, my way, the right way, and those are all in quotation marks. My way, because I know how things should be going, and this is not it. If only they would listen to my every command and do as I say, life would be a lot smoother. End quotes. Something to that effect. And really what that is a refusal to accept life as it is. I don't like the way things are. They should be ellipses, ... And off we could go for hours. Many people do. Pontificating about the way things should be rather than accepting the way that things are. Now, accepting is like a really dirty word in English. Like, accept? I'm American. I don't accept anything. I fight it tooth and nail. If I don't like the way things are, my credit card company says, you know, you're late 12 hours, we're going to charge you 15.9% for this late fee and blah, blah, blah. No, we don't accept that at all. Accept sounds too much like surrendering. As in giving in, throwing the towel. We're fighters. We're a pioneer culture. Right? So to give in, or to accept life, is the exact opposite, I think, of how we've been trained as Westerners, for the most part, to live our lives. It's in our cultural DNA to shape the world to meet our needs and our expectations. We conquer nature. Or we are conquered. And that's how, more often than not, I think we see things. So to trust life is not something that comes easily, and certainly isn't something that's comfortable for me. And part of it is, I think, comes back to the fundamental human tendency to want things not only to be predictable, right? For instance, when I walk outside, my car should be parked right there. And I like it to be right there. If it were missing, that would cause me all sorts of angst and frustration and headache, and I'd go off on my own mental little narrative about why life isn't fair because someone stole my car. So there's that, but there's something else at work here, which is that we pick and choose instinctively, in the same way as if I were to tap your knee, your leg might jerk. Which, by the way, I always faked. Whenever I went to the doctor, I was just, let's get this over with, so I'd kick it. It's just to leave me alone, stop hitting me. And I would fake the knee thing. That's neither here nor there. But we're looking for good over bad, which really equates to that which is more pleasurable or satisfying compared to that which is dissatisfying or plain old boring, because that's the antithesis of American life in the 21st century. Boring is almost worse than bad or unpleasant. Try driving in a car with a 7-year-old, or hanging out with one at like July 28th or something, and the child is bored, and there's nothing that you can do that's going to remove that boredom. It's so terrible. We have to be honest with ourselves enough to realize and understand that as human beings we gravitate towards pleasure, and we can never amass enough of it. My friend's having a baby, or sorry, his wife is having a baby. Big difference. He'll just be standing there. His wife's having a baby, and everybody tells him the same thing, which he is so frustrated with hearing at this point, which is, catch up on your sleep. Get your sleep now. As if you can just stow it away in your back pocket, like, oh no, I got 8 hours, I'm good, it's right here. Same thing with pleasure. No matter how much pleasure we have, we're always going to want more. Yes, I can have an ice cream sundae, and it'll be delicious, and then I'll full, and then I feel like a slob, and I feel guilty. But, 2 more days, I probably can go for another ice cream sundae. It's part of our evolution, I think, as individuals, as a species, just to constantly propel toward wanting more. You have to confront that. That's not, for that reason, I don't want to trust life. Because life is not going to give me what I want, which is more, comma, more, comma, more, comma, and I can fill up the next 22 minutes repeating that word, because the human appetite is infinite. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just when we don't really understand what that appetite is. For instance, most of the time we think we have to act upon it. I want this, therefore I must have it. No, you just want it. And regardless of whether or not you get it, there's going to be something else you want later on. So let's just be honest about that. Trust requires us to do the counterintuitive. To swim upstream and accept life at this present moment in its entirety. I like to call it warts and all its ugliness and beauty, instead of demanding that it follows my mental regimen. Wednesday is July 16th. I know this because it's been burned in my mind for about 4 weeks now. That's the day that I set up. I'm having a home inspection. Township of Hamilton, if you're listening. I think I have good karma. The township inspector is going to come in and look at my house and figure out whether or not I'm going to get a CO. I need that CO to move. August 13th. Exactly 1 month from today, I'm supposed to move. If for whatever reason I don't get that CO, I could be in big doo-doo. Now, when I talk about trusting life, it's not the way that my mom will tell me, oh, it'll be okay on Wednesday. It's going to be fine. That's not the kind of trust that we're talking about. Like, oh no, I think I failed the exam. Oh, it's okay, honey. Just trust. No, that's not that kind of trust. Because what that means is trust that things are going to work out the way you want them to. This is a bigger trust. This is jumping off the plane with no parachute. And accepting whatever it is that life is going to hand us at that moment. And there's a duality, there's a positive duality to this. Most of the time you hear duality in Buddhism, they're like, oh, you're being dualistic, and it's bad. There's a positive duality because it's saying, I trust what life will give me, and I trust that I can accept it. That's a big trust. I don't know which one's more frightening for us. Because most of us doubt that we have, I don't think I have it. I don't know if I can handle this problem. Sure you can. You might stumble. We all do. But you will stumble gracefully. It's not a trust that life is going to get us what we want. That's the same old patterns, the same old karma that leads most people to practice in the first place. Whatever mental defense mechanisms, techniques, habits we've developed fail at some point. Because they're all ways of just resisting reality. Defending ourselves and the things that we want out of life. Instead of just accepting, okay, this is the way it is. I failed this test. Okay, what am I going to do? Study harder. Still got that F. It's not going to go away. We can dwell on it. We can allow it to dictate our thoughts for the next week or two as we dwell on it. It's, I can't believe I failed that. Or I can't believe he said that. Or I can't believe the list goes on. Or we can just accept what life has given us. That's the trust at the heart of Zen practice. And it's so seldom discussed, but I think it's very important. To unconditionally surrender ourselves and our own agendas and narrative, to kind of turn down that voice inside of our head and say, let's see what life has for me. And life, by the word life there, I'm not talking about some abstraction or some entity or something called fate. It is getting inside your car and turning the key. Does the car start? Most of the time, yes. Occasionally, no. How do we respond when the car doesn't start? That's Zen practice. You can't control how you feel. The mental voice is going to start screaming in the same old habit energy patterns that it always has. Son of a big mother, gee, God, it's going to do what it does. But what do you do with it? What's your relationship to those thoughts? We know the answer. Zen teaches us to watch it and let it go. Well, what do you need to do at that point? You go to start the car, it doesn't start. I'm not really handy. I got 8 stitches on my finger a couple of weeks ago trying to cut a wall panel. I can open it up and see if a squirrel's eating something, and when I open up the engine compartment and see that there's nothing, no problems that I can troubleshoot, I can either try to jumpstart my car or find another way to work, period. But instead what we're going to, most of the time what we're going to do is pour gasoline on those mental flames. Oh, you know what? Why did this happen? My lights are on. You know why lights are on? Jason called me when I was getting out of the car last time. It was freaking Jason always call me. Oh my God. It's his fault. And off we go. None of which is constructive. Nothing's going to change the circumstances one bit. Try to jumpstart the car. If that works, wonderful. If it doesn't, call somebody on the phone. Or call your boss. That's what life has given us. More often than not, I think they're minor irritants that we just allow to escalate into unnecessary catastrophes. And what we do is then we put a little mental check in our mind and say, yep. And it reaffirms some view or some idea that we've already established. For instance, Jason. Or life's unfair. Or my dad, for the longest time, hated Fords. I don't know why. All of them. Every single one, he hated Fords. No idea why. He had a Ford Bronco. It fell off a truck lift. It was nobody's fault. It wasn't Ford's fault. He hated Fords. My first car was a Mustang. He goes, oh, why'd you get a freaking Mustang? Because I'm 17 years old and I'm a male. But for him, anytime he heard the word Ford and something negative, it reaffirmed, I told you. And now he owns one. Go figure. So we're looking for evidence to support convictions that we've already developed, rather than just saying, you know what, most of the time I see a pattern, I'm the one who's creating that pattern with my own mind. I see something in reality, and it just happens to fit a mental configuration I've already developed, and here we go. Fords are great. Fords are junk. The biggest challenge with practice is it seldom feels like what we think it's going to feel like. Because what we want it to feel like is, well, like the statue depicts. Bliss, ecstasy, joy. I don't really feel much bliss, ecstasy, or joy in my life. I really don't. I'm a parent. I have children. There's no time for bliss or ecstasy. There's just, did you brush your teeth? Get in the bathtub. Leave her alone. That's what life demands I do. I know Andrew's thinking, be a pain in the ass? That's what life expects of you? Yes. Parenting requires constant attention to the minutiae of details. Did you eat? Did you go pee-pee yet? That's my life. We have to be willing to take this idea and throw it out the window of the way that life should be. One of the first things my teacher told me is there are no shoulds in life. You don't walk outside, you see the big Hollywood sign, you don't see should in reality. It's just not there. Could, which is the infinite possibilities and choices we can make in life. I could go left, I could go right, I could stand here, I could stand here for 1 second, 2 seconds, 10 seconds, walk forward, work backwards. I could do any of those things. But there are no shoulds in reality, meaning thou must. Have you guys ever read East of Eden? One of the most important words in the book is timshel, which was, I believe it was Hebrew, but it could have came from the Greek translation of the Bible. And what it means is thou mayest. You have a choice. We're constantly exercising choices. Long breath, short breath. Continue sitting, change my position. Scratch or don't scratch. These are all choices. We are actions as human beings. We never stop acting. Even when we're sleeping, we're constantly participating in life. It's not an option. You can't retreat from life. Even if you were to go in the Himalayas and go in a cave and have like KFC delivered once a week, and you couldn't escape life. It's always there until it isn't. So my suggestion is we can either fight it, tooth and nail, as most of us have been, or we can try to open ourselves, by degrees perhaps, to that great trust with a capital T. Not that life is going to deliver what we deserve or the way we want it, but to really trust, like we do in our meditation. You sit silently, that this moment is complete. I hesitate to say perfect because there's a lot of baggage to it, just like bliss, ecstasy, enlightenment, all have a lot of baggage attached to that. But this moment's complete. It's good enough.